Welcome everyone to this video from Venus Alchemy in the Morning Star Descent journey of Inanna, going through the gate that represents the second chakra, or the sacral chakra. We're preparing for that, and it represents the life force sexual center of the goddess. I'm Cayelin here with Tami Brunk, and we're so excited to share this with you. It's one of my favorite chakras, and I think it's one of yours too, Tami.
Absolutely, totally.
So we're entering what could be called the sacral chakra gate as Inanna is making her descent. And so this is just some images of some gates that might be representative of that journey for you to tune into.
So this is the point in the journey where Inanna gives up her ankle bracelets, which can be seen as symbolically releasing or letting go of all the ways she has not truly valued herself. So it's the sixth gate on the descent, but it is the activation of the second, or sacral chakra.
Indeed. And just, as she's releasing her vestments going into the underworld, she is releasing any distortions that are connected to the whole second chakra. But all of that is definitely comes back to how she values herself, or how we value ourselves or not. So it's a significant gate for us to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. So the second, or the sacral chakra, the Swadhisthana, which is Sanskrit for the dwelling place of the self, is located in the lower abdomen. You can see it here. It's right below the belly button. And it's the center that's linked with pleasure, enjoyment, and creativity. It's also known as the sex and money chakra, and we're going to share a lot more about that as we proceed.
Absolutely. So first of all, of course, because we have set this clear intent that we want to bring into balance our relationship with this energy center, the first thing we may encounter are some of the areas where we're out of balance. So those might show up as places where we feel inadequate. We might come to awareness around low self-worth with certain areas of our lives. We might experience self-criticism, or the places where we feel we're a victim, and we go into that stance. We might encounter loneliness, our neediness, or clinginess, that might come up. And then the question with all of this is similar to the Leo journey with Aries, because it's all about really honoring the self, is, can I love myself even when this stuff shows up? Compulsive eating disorders can also be part of this. Overly controlling yourself and others, or others' challenges manifesting or attracting. So if you're out of balance, you might not be centered and grounded enough in self-worth and self-valuing, or even slowed down enough to bring in what you need in the material, physical realm. Also, it's possible we might experience the places and see the places where we are kind of more disconnected, frigid, or cold towards others. We might experience and become aware of how that's harming us. I know I've had experiences sometimes with that, my disconnection in certain areas of my life, and how that feels painful. When I really encounter that, then it's helped me to see where that hurt is that creates that, so that I can melt that and open it. Menstrual disorders, issues with the sex organs, this is all connected to the sacral chakra. Lower back pain, urinary kidney issues, appendicitis. And of course, we're not invoking that you will have physical symptoms like this, and sometimes they do come up. And one of the ways to energize and look at this is that this is a very powerful month where healing can be accelerated, where we can really call on the support of the circle and the process itself for miracles, for support in these areas, or disassociation or obsession with the physical body. So being out of relationship with the physical body, being disembodied. There's so many ways that in our culture we dissociate. So you might encounter the places where you do that, and so that you can be aware of it, and so that you can choose to bring your spirit, you can choose to bring your consciousness back into your body again and again and again.
And really, just to say that the idea about being aware of what these imbalances can be, and of course there's more, but this is like the essence of what the imbalances can be. Gives us an opportunity to do an assessment of how we're doing with our own sacral chakra. So if we find that these are issues that we have, then we know that perhaps we really have some work to do here. And that the idea is that in this month, of working with this chakra, we get to transform them, as Tami was suggesting, which is, such an awesome opportunity. Woohoo! So if you have an active sacral chakra, you might find that you feel emotionally imbalanced. You might find that you are trying to manipulate others to be what you want them to be who you want them to be, or and behave in the ways you want them to behave. And that comes probably from not feeling balanced within yourself. So it's like, if I can't be balanced within myself, I'm going to try to make it work outside of myself and get into those control issues. There's also addictions that can happen here, especially to sex, food, shopping. Often people who have shopping addictions are just trying to fill the hole inside themselves so they can feel more value. And it can be a real problem. I know people who have spent themselves into huge debt shopping because and they can't stop. They just don't know how to stop. So it's important to be aware of that one. And then the idea that we can be addicted to stuff as well. So it's a great month to consider what you could let go of. What stuff do you have that is not really serving you?
Right. Or what is your relationship to physical objects?
Right.
Just generally, like if you do have a shopping addiction, or it could just be generally like that you derive your value or your worth in a subtle way to what it is, like having instant gratification.
Right.
Kind of built into the culture. And what happens if I don't get that thing I think I need and want right now? Like, how do I feel about that? Does that mean, this is all about scarcity and abundance. So, what is the emotional need that's underneath that? And what do I feel when I can't have that thing I immediately want?
And we're going to talk a lot more about that. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then if the sacral chakra is underactive, we can feel overly sensitive. We can be really harsh towards ourselves. We might feel guilty for no reason. I have maybe had that problem a few times in my life. If somebody's not happy and I feel like it's my fault. Or, so that seems like there's a reason, but we can feel guilty even if there is a reason, but it may not be about us at all. So that can show up in this chakra. Sexual impotency or frigidity and blocking material success. And that's something we definitely want to turn around at this chakra gate as much as possible.
Awesome. So what we're really, we could say our intentions that we're setting this month could be centered around clearing and healing everything that stands in the way of these experiences. So we might begin to feel the experience of what is this like as we really heal this aspect of our lives. What does it feel like to be able to come from a place of radiant warmth and sincere friendliness? And I think that this is kind of like that place where we feel the universe itself to be friendly, and other human beings, we like that. It's more coming from that place of generosity, of friendliness, of there's enough, I'm okay, I'm safe, without seeming needy or coming on too strong. How does it feel to live from that place? How does it feel to be really open to passion and intimacy and healthy sexuality, like to really live in that and let that generate and strengthen other areas of our lives? And what does it feel like to be able to attract and manifest what it is that we're needing to step into our full soul purpose and really express ourselves and really live the lives that bring a lot of joy and satisfaction to us? And what does it mean and how does it feel to be able to just go with the flow instead of trying to continually stop or start or kind of be out of that balance? And how does it feel to be able to accept what is and not be continually trying to manage and control so that we're exhausting ourselves by fighting with what reality is bringing to us? Reality, I know it's a tricky word, but
yes, but whatever we're experiencing, and especially if it's beyond our control, it's not something we've created, but it's something that we're encountering. It's like, how do we accept that? Because oftentimes what happens for people, if they're having difficult experiences, then they immediately judge themselves as wrong or bad or not good enough or less than or something. And sometimes we just have challenging experiences. Right. Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay. It's not, it doesn't mean you're not a good person. It's just, how can you accept that? And even if you can only accept it for a moment, I can only accept this for a minute. But in the next minute, I'm not accepting it. But then maybe I can come back to accepting it again. So it's a practice of acceptance. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. So, and then what would it feel like to be able to really express myself creatively with passion, with purpose, with focus, with just really radiating and sharing what my gifts are, what my skills are, what I'm here to give in the world, and being easygoing, joyful, just from that inner radiance, feeling really creative and fun, sexually fulfilled. Like, just so imagine, what would it feel like to live in that place? What would it feel like to and understand if you're encountering any challenges or blocks, that those challenges or blocks are showing up so we can encounter more of these other things.
I'm thinking of a little mantra that I created once when I was feeling somewhat overwhelmed by all the things I was doing, and I was loving what I was doing, but at the same time, a lot. And actually I'm kind of in that situation again.
Yeah, right.
so I need to really adopt this mantra again, but it's easy, breezy, fun, fun, fun. It's like I'm claiming that it's easy, breezy, fun, fun, fun.
Right. And approaching whatever's in front of you in that way is awesome.
That's right. Right. So just here's some things you can do to help balance this chakra. You can chant the mantra LAM. You can work with the tactile sensual pleasure, and that's using all the senses, whether, it's what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're touching, working with beauty, sensual music, things that get you into that place of really getting in touch with your senses and having a beautiful, pleasurable experience around that. Of course, wearing orange, the color of joy, creative expression, enthusiasm, warmth, and fun. You can also work with orange gems or minerals like amber, orange calcite, orange kyanite, orange carnelian, citrine, golden topaz, rutilated quartz. These are all associated with the second chakra.
And of course, any time we talk about, these are just examples, and you can do your own research, and really most stones that are orange are going to carry the same energy, but they have subtler qualities that you might want to research for yourself.
Right, because there might be something very specific about an orange stone that would really work for you that we haven't listed here. Mm-hmm. But this is just to get you going on your own. And the same with the herbs and essential oils, like, these are the ones that you can use, but there's also others that aren't listed here. So, but it can get you inspired to work with that. So burdock, damiana, gardenia, sandalwood, and they're really great to smell. These some of these sandalwood's one of my favorites. Ylang ylang, bay laurel, bergamot, cardamom, clary sage, jasmine, orange, patchouli, rosemary. So that's another way you can support and enhance your Venus, this particular chakra gate. Mm-hmm. Work with, and you maybe even taking some time to work with these daily. Mm-hmm. Or pick one that really works for you and work with it. Then there's also, of course, the other practices you can do by taking care of your body. So healthy organic food, exercise, pranayama, tantric practices really helps to do hip opening yoga or stretches, because of course it's in this area of our body. So if our hips are constricted, and then that chakra is probably going to be constricted. So working with that. And if you take yoga classes or work with some of these practices, you can ask your teachers, what are the best ways to do that. Right. You could also probably do some research on the internet. And I think there's probably lots of YouTubes that have hip opening yoga stretches and things that you can work with as well.
Awesome.
Of course, Kundalini yoga, belly dance, spending time in nature, my very favorite. Tune in and notice how your body feels. And I know my body's really happy when I'm out walking in the desert.
Yeah. Me too. When I'm out walking, when I'm in the mountains, and swimming, just any of those things, dancing, stretching.
Right. So just pay attention and honor yourself by giving yourself time to do those things during this month, and ask what your body wants, what it needs to be nourished, to feel good. And I also can't say enough about, in my last few years of really upping the ante in terms of eating well and taking care of my body, and noticing when I eat things that don't feel good. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done with that.
Right.
It was good, but it wasn't worth the pain that followed.
Right. Yeah, really listening to how your body responds. Definitely.
Yes. Yes. It's a great practice.
So the Madonna Whore or Magdalene split, this is just one of the things from the very first time. And Cayelin, I know you're going to definitely want to talk about this too, but it's one of the areas that comes up when we're working with the sacral chakra and we're working with the divine feminine, is that we are living in a culture where we each individually, even if we're not aware of it, even if we weren't raised Christian or Catholic, it's in the field, is this kind of split that's presented where the divine feminine is either seen as, or the feminine herself is seen as either the Madonna, like the pure feminine, or the whore, the Magdalene. So this split is something that many of us as women and even as men are having to navigate, that has to do with really healing our sexuality. So it's something we may face this month, is feelings of shame around our sexuality, or that really comes from this culture and the wounding around our sexuality as females.
Yeah, to really have a healthy sacral chakra, and I know that statistics are super high in terms of women who have been sexually abused as children, or even older, as they've gotten older, whatever that's about, or they felt they had to give that part of themselves so they could survive to a husband or to a partner or just, somebody. And so there's a lot of deep wounding in this area that is becoming more aware. People are becoming more aware of it now. And so our opportunity is, how are we healing that split between sexuality and spirituality? How are we able to bring them back together, to see that one is not separate from the other, that they're both vital, and that actually our greatest spiritual experience can be through sexuality, when we've healed that and worked with that. So something just to be aware of as we go through this month, and to contemplate how that would work for you. How could, if you feel like you have a split here, what could you do to help to heal that? What can you tune into? What can you notice within yourself that will help you with this piece? Because it's so incredibly important for this chakra.
And what occurs to me as you're talking is that, if you really consider that whatever healing work we're doing individually has huge ramifications for the ancestors, our mothers, our grandmothers. You could say the healing moves backwards through time.
Yes.
The healing also moves forward through time. And the other thing, as we're speaking, I'm suddenly just really aware that as we say, this is really changing. If you look at the majority of women across the globe, and if you look at what's happening right now, the reality is there are many, with sex trafficking and with many other things, this split is even more pronounced in many, many cultures. And yes, the change is happening very, very slowly. And so, as we do this, we're very privileged in a sense, not even just in a sense, we're very privileged to even have the level of comfort and space to have these conversations, to consider things in this way. And so let's just dedicate the conversation we're able to have and this healing work we're able to do to our grandmothers and grandmothers, to the next generations, and to the women and little girls and boys, all across the globe.
Absolutely.
And to men who are impacted by this as well, that we dedicate this to a world where this is really healed at a big level.
Yes, and as we heal it within ourselves, we heal it in the greater collective.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why it's important. Some people may not really care about it for themselves, but if you consider, so if you're one of those people that gets motivated by, yes, I'm doing this for a bigger purpose and a bigger reason, then that's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's also helpful for ourselves. And the more whole we are within ourselves, then the more whole the world will be. So
yeah, and some of us, it's like both. It's like both and. It's just like
yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, sex, pleasure, creativity, and life force. This is not even supposed to be in here. This is supposed to be the next one. So we're just going to skip right over it. We're filming this at the time of the Aries overtone or meta goddess, and I just didn't even notice. Anyway, this will be for the next one, or for that part of the class. And what we're really wanting to refer to here is for any meta goddess, any expression of the goddess that might be happening when you're experiencing this gate. These are the things that we can do. And then when we do our specific classes, we are doing them specifically for the meta goddess.
Yeah.
When we're doing our live classes.
It makes sense that Aries would have to like come in there at some point.
Of course,
she really does want to be first, and she really does want to get attention. So there you go.
Right. Yeah. It's just a little oversight. Oh, well. So at the second chakra, again, we're still looking at this idea of sex, pleasure, creativity, and life force, because sexuality is connected to our life force, and if our life force energy is diminished, our sexuality is going to be diminished. So when we increase our life force, we can increase our capacity also for having greater sense of pleasure and creative expression. So Andre Gide, he said, every perfect action is accompanied by pleasure. I love that. Every perfect action is accompanied by pleasure. By that, you can tell that you ought to do it. It's so second chakra kind of thing. It's like, is this bringing you pleasure? Yes. That's a yes. That's a yes. Keep going in that direction.
Yeah, it's a very different orientation than the way we were raised. Consider the world that would be created if we actually lived that way. And blocks around that. I can think of some blocks that I have around that. I can think of some blocks I have around other people in my life operating from that way. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing to really consider and look at.
Yes. So you want to tune into what is your desire for creating, and what's your why. So once you know what those things are, and then you can notice what's coming up, like what are the blocks that come up around that, and paying attention to, like, well, maybe I have a desire, maybe I have a why, but it's completely mental, or it's coming from external motivators. And so if that's the case, then it's probably not really yours.
Yeah, it might be coming from somewhere else. Maybe it's what your mom wanted you to do. Maybe it's what your boss wants you to do. Maybe you think you should be this way. And if that's what you're motivated by, everything's going to be 10 times harder. And it's going to be a lot harder to really continue generating the energy to do it. It's not going to be sustainable. I think a lot of people who go into the helping fields, maybe I shouldn't, or you see sometimes the culture of nonprofits or being, the service fields, which, those things are so essential. You can really sense and feel the difference between the people who are attracted to those things, because it's almost like they feel like they need to make up for something, that they're not okay as they are, versus this is really something. I'm not saying it's black or white. There's probably some intersection, but coming to it right from a place of, wow, this really feels good to me. I like giving in this way. This is something, or, I feel so passionately about this. This needs to change. So I'm going to bring my energy there. And it may be that there's challenge, maybe that it's hard, but there's this energy and aliveness that comes forward as you do that thing that helps you know that you're on the right track.
And you feel pleasure, and you feel excitement, and you feel alive.
It energizes you. Yeah. Right. So then the womb of all possibilities. What's fun about working with the sacral chakra also is just to consider this is the womb, or for men, this is the hara. So this is the power center of our bodies, because women and men both have kind of an energy center that's all about creation, creativity, giving birth to new projects, to new aspects of self, to new kinds of relationships. So the womb is a space of infinite intelligence and creativity, and a space for the creation of all possibilities. So we might ask, what do we need to clear in order to become powerful creators? The capacity of the feminine womb of creation, which is symbolically men and women both have access to this. It's to naturally release, clear, and cleanse each month, cycling with the moon. So what needs to be cleared and cleansed from our creative womb? As we descend, as we're healing, clearing at the womb chakra, the sacral chakra, that's our question.
This is really important too, because there's a time in women's lives where they're no longer cycling monthly. And of course, men don't. But I happen to be past the time of cycling monthly. But taking that time to really tune in, and maybe as Venus and the moon come together each month, is a great time to consider that. It's like, what are we releasing? What are we clearing? What are we cleansing? What are we letting go of? at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So that, it's definitely worth contemplating here at the sacral chakra.
Absolutely. So we also were, one of the things that comes up at the sacral chakra has to do with whether or not we really value ourselves. And similar to Taurus, it's like the place where we consider what is beautiful, what is intimacy for us, but also, what is beauty, what is aesthetically pleasing to us. And so how do we value who we are and our version of beautiful? So I'm not beautiful like you. I'm beautiful like me. I love that. And I'm beautiful just the way I am. So like as women especially, but also men more and more are encountering this as a barometer of their self-worth. It's more common than you think with men. Like, how do I value myself exactly as I am and see myself as beautiful in my uniqueness, even though I don't fit some standard image of that? Is really, this can be a time where you might encounter the places you don't feel beautiful, and it could be a time to let go of that comparison, toxic comparison and judgments, and open into greater self-love of how you're beautiful.
That's so awesome. Yes, definitely.
And this just blew my mind. There's a link that will be posted to the page and in the Home Play resources. But there's a YouTube video with this individual, Osmal Suso, who I'm sure is, he comes to this probably from deep wounding himself. But he is the director of Miss Venezuela beauty pageant. He's known as the Czar of Beauty. And he's one of these individuals who is kind of like, he basically, in this interview, he talks about how he has basically created this whole new standard of beauty for women in South America and Venezuela and Brazil. There's a whole culture there where women's value and worth is very deeply tied to their physical beauty, and their value in the larger culture is limited to a certain time frame. And there's, in any case, this other quote, he says, "I say that inner beauty does not exist. It's something that unpretty women invented." So I invite you to watch the whole video, because what it does is it might help you really make a caricature out of that voice in your own mind, or out of that force in the material consumer culture that's making money off of women's bodies, and that's basically, really violating the natural innate beauty of women by saying this in this patriarchal way, like you must look this way in order to have value and worth. So I love this video because it really brings it to light in kind of a grotesque way that makes it really obvious, so that we can tune in and see how subtly we might buy into this bullshit. For lack of a better word.
Yes, well said. So as we're tuning into this, it's like, do you act, or have you acted in the past at some point as if your value and worth is based on some of these factors, like how good you are and how much you do for others? And you can just kind of tune into these and see which ones really resonate for you. You may resonate with all of them, but you may resonate with some more than the others. And then, take some time to really investigate this during this month. So is it based on the number of problems you can solve successfully, or how many friends you have, or what you accomplish and achieve, or how much money you earn or have in the bank, or what you have materially? And we've kind of already covered that piece a little bit as well. How many painful experiences you've had, or how many wonderful and exciting experiences you have. Sometimes you'll meet people and it's like they're just constantly trying to tell you how bad they've had it.
Right.
Maybe in an attempt to get sympathy, or to feel like they can have a connection, through that sympathetic place. Or you meet people who just can't tell you how great things are, and they brag and brag and brag about it, and it's kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. So it's tricky, but I think maybe the point is, we all do both things, but is this where you gain your identity? Maybe is this where you actually gain your value? And I think it is a little more subtle when it's about the painful experiences you've had. But
there are people who it's
no
like
fun.
they use that as a way to get attention, to get, to control, whatever. There can be that. Now, everybody's had painful experiences and everybody's had wonderful experiences. And when we talk about them, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just is, if we're overly identified, as Tami was saying, and that our value and worth becomes based on that, and then it's out of balance. It's not a good.
And it can keep us really stuck. It's a trap.
Yeah. So my true value and worth is based on my existence and how much joy I experience every day, and how much love I feel and express, and how much light I naturally shine. So this is a great mantra to work with
Love
this
that.
month if you feel inspired to work with this, to shift if you have ways of having value and worth that are less supportive or less, maybe juicy and alive for you, and then maybe use this as a way to shift that.
Awesome. All right, so now we're going to work with the really fun releasing blocks around money. And this is something that, as these priestesses and earth mages, priests that we are in this circle, who are doing powerful, beautiful things and bringing our light into the world, it's really essential that we learn how to access the energy of abundance through money, through, attracting the resources we need to create in a powerful way, because we're needed in the world where our projects, our dreams, our visions, our lives to be fully empowered. So this is part of that.
Beautiful. And the other thing that, I think about the handcuffs and the guy holding all that money
Yeah.
is that sometimes we can get so focused on the money piece that that also holds us back. So how do we release blocks around that? And so that we're coming from our creative life force and we get supported. So
right. You're right. Because there's so much in the culture that would kind of support us just being so focused on money that if our mind is focused just purely on money too much, there's so much other richness that we're losing. It's only energy. It's all it is.
Right. So this is the sex and money chakra. So we're going to talk about money and the goddess Juno Moneta. And actually Moneta is the root word of money. And so interestingly, money has a feminine basis. And she was the fertility goddess of Rome. And she had to do with marriage and childbirth and money because they actually minted money in her temple.
Mm.
And so this is a quote from T. Crawford. I don't know. The Secret Life of Money, How Money Can Be Food for Your Soul or for the Soul. And the quote is, what are the origins of the word money? If we search in this direction, we meet a goddess. She lives in the world of archetypes, the larger patterns that shape us and await our discovery. The word money derives from the Roman goddess named Juno Moneta. So we can connect with her as we are healing our money issues as a possibility. And of course, you see the coin with Moneta named up there. And she, it was how they had money in Rome. They actually put her name on the money.
Yeah, and as we do this, we don't know that money at that time, just because she's female and a goddess, it doesn't necessarily mean that money energy was like the most holy, pure thing at that time. But what we can do is we can energize bringing the feminine dynamic back into the field of money because it's been left out.
Yes, so much so. I mean, I just watched this documentary on the ascent of women and how women were kept from having money, from having valuable work in the world. They could only work in the home and serve the husband, that they couldn't have property. They just all the financial resources removed from them. And so we're living in a time now where it's, how do we reclaim that? And what they have found is that many cultures that have allowed women to have more financial resources and, they're more abundant. So that's kind of telling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And women tend to invest in their communities. That's what they've found. That's what Bank is based on, a lot of different systems now of micro lending, and it's based on, lend it to women because they reinvest in their community.
Yes.
That tends to be the way. Not that no men do, but they're the ones who are closest to the children often in traditional or maybe cultures. And so it tends to be the way things operate.
So we're going to post this quote on the class page so that you can, and there's more to it. It's a whole article that you can connect into, but the whole idea is that, what is our relationship with money, and how can we really create a new relationship with money? So that's really the essence of what this is about. And, here's the temple of Juno Moneta that was at the center of Rome. And that's where they first minted money, at least, from the historical perspective that we have. So, Yeah.
And how can we, maybe we, in our visualizations, we can even just envision our own temple. We can create a temple in our mind of where that money is created and that it is based on, and it's the energy that it's created from is love. And just even imagine how those bills or that money, it goes outward in every direction, and it strengthens and it feeds and it nourishes. I would say, I have my own thing, which would be regenerating all the watersheds across the U.S. and the globe, or, whatever that is your thing, like see that money, that energy go out and make that happen.
Yeah.
Because we're clearing and healing and releasing in the descent phase around the sacral chakra, we're going to bump into scarcity consciousness, because the irony of the time we live in, and of the particular version of capitalism that we exist within, is that as much as we talk about it as if it's all about being abundant and focusing on money, and as much as we think that that's what it is in our culture, it's actually based on scarcity consciousness. Our modern capitalist culture is based on there's not enough. And so I love this guy, Steve Noble, this quote about what scarcity is. I think it taps down deep into the root of it. It's basically, it says, scarcity is the feeling that there is something wrong with the world. It is an invisible prison forged within the mind and felt within our whole being. Being in this prison means that we can never really be who we are or live our life to its fullest capability. And think about how many people are trapped in this way of being and thinking and doing. This to me is one of the things increasingly I'm really passionate about, is how can we create a world that liberates people from working how many jobs, especially poor people trying to be middle class, even though there is no middle class, that they use up all their life force energy doing things that don't enable them to use their goddess-given powers. So in the scarcity state, no amount of money, houses, holidays, or sexual encounters will give us a sense of deep fulfillment or lasting happiness. And that's true in our material culture. Those things, they don't make us happy. That's not really what we need. But the consumer culture would tell us that will help. Scarcity is a world of hungry ghosts, starving children, and criminal greed. Scarcity finds solace between every couple that argues over money and will inhabit every workplace with a nose to the grindstone mentality. Scarcity is found between a rock and a hard place. It is a place of great emptiness, although not in the Zen sense. I like that. Yeah, different kind of
emptiness, yes.
Yeah. This kind of emptiness is the feeling of never being fulfilled, satisfied, or complete. It's this insatiability. It's like a bath with the plug always out. No matter how much water is poured in, the bath can never be full. The water just simply runs away. And it's interesting. It makes me think also about the way we treat water in the modern cities, and that the way we treat water is that we divert it. And so that it ends up going off into a channel and being wasted, instead of using it to water our lawns and using it as a valuable resource. It's just, we are this culture of just not knowing how to use resources in a masterful way.
Right. How many people stand at the sink with the sink running while they're brushing their teeth, or, right. There's lots of different ways that we maybe are even part of the problem in wasting water.
Right.
So
right.
Becoming aware of that, and maybe being more conscious of how we are being good stewards of water.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about this?
Well, yeah, sure. What abundance consciousness? I love abundance consciousness. This is really about how are we forging a new economy, and that it's based on renewable resources, and that there are unlimited resources. So scarcity consciousness in our current economic system basically is based on the fact that there are limited resources, and there's a greed factor about I need to get as much as I can for me and my family, and to hell with everybody else. Mm-hmm. So if we can shift that consciousness to come from a place of being tuning into the unlimited resources and being good stewards of these resources. So abundance consciousness is saying there's plenty for everyone, that, we live in a field of plenty, and that's important to remember. And many ancient, or we could say Native American cultures, they actually called it the field of plenty, and they knew how to tap into that. And so their needs were always met. Yeah.
Such a different way to operate.
Absolutely. And so abundance consciousness might ask us, how can I develop my gifts so I can share them and bless the world? What forms of generous giving will bring me the greatest joy and fulfillment? So we get what we give, and when we give, we get, but if we're giving to get, that's sort of the addictive form of giving. But how do we do that from that, if it's like from that full place of where we're coming from, and then it brings joy and fulfillment for us? How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, you can see it as, I know for myself, the feeling, even as we're saying the words, even as we're considering it, what is that? Doesn't that make you feel really expansive and abundant? Just thinking about that focus. I think so much has to do with how do we focus our minds and our attention. If this is how we're focusing our minds and our attention, it's so powerful, and it does generate abundance for us. It does generate exactly what we need to be a force for positive change in the world.
Absolutely. So. And then as we change it within ourselves, and we model how to change that for others, and we become generous and giving and so on, it changes the whole everything. Mm-hmm. So it really shifts the consciousness to a place of greater abundance. So we might ask ourselves how we can, how can my life, my actions, my thoughts contribute to the well-being of all life on this planet? And if we look at the challenge and limitations of abundance consciousness and ask, how can this challenge or limitation be approached as a gift in disguise?
Yeah.
Right. You want to say anything more about that, Tami?
Oh, I think that it's the difference between coming from a place of fear versus a place of trust and love. And, once again, it's just like, I think it's a practice for a lot of us. And I actually would recommend to people, this is going to sound like a crazy thing, maybe not a recommendation, but it's not such a bad thing if you find yourself at some point in your life with like zero in your bank account. I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually think that's a good thing, because then that's when you can really see miracles come through.
Yeah, I was just thinking this as we got to this question, and I'm thinking about all of the challenges and limitations I've experienced, and it gives me an opportunity to really appreciate when people are going through that.
Yeah, exactly.
And what that's like. And, so there's compassion that comes from that. So that could be part of the gift. It's like pretty much, yeah. I mean, not everybody has this experience. People who are born into great wealth don't.
And they may have other sources of pain and struggle, I would imagine.
Yeah, of course, but they don't have this one.
So. I just want to say that for a lot of us, and I'll speak for myself, I grew up in a primitive Baptist family. We were working class. My dad worked in a factory. My mom was a homemaker. They were so resourceful. She designed the house. He built it. We had a little farm. They were like the classic, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Although later in my life, I realized, even though my mom never admitted this, her parents actually gave them money a few times. That was not the story we were raised with. It was only recently that I heard that story. And that's a huge thing to be left out, because what we always heard was, we didn't ask for money. Nobody gave us money, because that would be, that would take away our dignity and our pride. And so we were always taught that growing up too, that we better not really want money, because if we did, then that would weaken us, and that would really be a bad thing. So I remember this last year, it was so humbling. One of my sisters was going through a really hard time, and she'd been going through a very hard time for a while. She had shifted to the gifting economy. She's got kids. And then she was always kind of back and forth. Am I asking for money or not? I found myself getting really irritated with this, because I was working through my own abundance. And I was just like, get your shit together. I heard that voice in my head, like, do you want money or do you not? So I would get irritated by this, because I think I was afraid of, it brought stuff up for me personally. So with this sister who I adore, she's amazing. Earlier this year, she was struggling and she wasn't making very much money, and she had asked for support. And we're very close in age, and I think we've got a lot to work out, but I didn't give her any money. Because I was pretty broke myself. But the reality is, I could have given her $20. I didn't. She probably could have used gas money or food money. I didn't give her any money. And then later that year, I had the experience of the same thing, where, because I'm also shifting my relationship with money, and I've been going through a phase where it's like, okay, just really questioning, a lot of things around the energy of money that I wasn't attracting as much. So I found myself in a situation where it's like, I don't really have gas money. And I realized in that moment how wonderful it would be to have someone just say, hey, here's $20, right?
Right.
So I had to look at that for myself, and it was kind of painful. And I actually apologized to my sister because I'm like, you know what? I didn't know. It had been a long time since I felt that way. And I forgot how it felt. And it wasn't that there was something wrong with me for not having money in that moment. I didn't do something bad. So that was really humbling. And so how do we heal our relationship with money and also cultivate more compassion for ourselves and others when we're in a phase where it's not coming through?
Right. So what is that gift in disguise?
Right. So so then it's so fun. And I think I won't read all these, Cayelin, but these are good. Connect with these on your own. I'll just skim over it. But again, just because this is such a rich topic, I mean, this is something you could have circles around in your community to really dive into this and heal this. It's so powerful. So abundance consciousness, it's again, Cayelin will talk more about this, about gratitude, being complimentary. It's just this generative energy for giving self and others, healthy relationship with failure, delight when others succeed. I'm just jumping around. Have a to be and to do list. Have both. Have a vision for your life. It's actually like shifting into a place of being an empowered creator. Like how can I use my energy, focus my attention, my energy, my time on creating the life that I want around me and being this influence in the world around me versus feeling at the effect of everything, which is where we're at with scarcity consciousness. It's just like, oh, I'm a victim and everything's happening to me. So I don't know. Do you want to say anything about that, Cayelin?
I think we've talked pretty well about it.
I think so too.
Okay. So we'll make sure this is in the home play for people that they can, if they want to spend more time with this and kind of look into, like, do you have places where you have scarcity consciousness? Are you cultivating abundance consciousness? If you have scarcity consciousness, can you shift your focus to cultivate more abundance consciousness? It's a great practice, especially at this chakra gate.
Right.
Yeah. And awesome. Then, part of what we want to do is dream into a new sacred economy, because the economy that we've had has been very difficult. And so if we came from a place where it wasn't just about the money, or, that we lived in a culture that believed everyone should have all their needs met before anything else happens, what a different world would be. And if we looked at the plentiful resources and that the earth is abundant, and we had a vision for a holistic socioeconomic system, and that there was a certain standard of living that everybody enjoyed no matter what, what a different world we would be living in. And that that all the resources are shared. They're not just for the elite or the select few. And that each person has valuable contribution, and that they are given a chance to be able to express that, and that then we are in a place where we're coming from a collaboration and cooperation rather than competition. Mm-hmm. So, that's the opportunity that we have.
Awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah. So as we are dreaming into a sacred economy, a couple of books that can be really useful: Sacred Economics, Money, Gift, and Society in the Age of Transition by Charles Eisenstein is an awesome way of relooking at this. Also, Jacques Fresco, who has something he calls the Venus Project. And here we are with Venus Alchemy. And the best money can't buy, Beyond Politics, Poverty, and War. So it's really about, understanding that money is a social convention. It's an agreement, and it's not a natural resource, and it doesn't represent a natural resource. It's not necessary for survival unless we've been conditioned to accept it as such.
Right.
That is so important to realize. And that the elimination of debt eliminates fear of not having enough, reducing and even eliminating both mental and physical stress, leaving us free to explore and develop our natural creative abilities. I want to live in that world.
Me too. I vote for that world.
I'm voting for that, yes.
So some of the questions that we might be want to just investigate at this gate might be, what would it take to clear and release all the ways I do not value myself? Just to hone it down really simply, focus on that. And just to maybe for a moment even just sense into, Where do I not value myself? What might that take? What might it take for me to clear and release all distortions and limiting beliefs I have around money and financial abundance? So really, what is that? How does that look and feel, and what wants to come up for clearing and releasing? What would it take for me to heal, clear, and release all my blocks to experiencing pleasure and intimacy in my life and in my relationships?
Yes.
Yeah, and how would that feel? What would it take for me to clear and release any blocks around joyful, pleasure-filled, expansive creativity? So
Yes.
creativity, intimacy, money and financial abundance, valuing ourselves, just holding that field, really energizing that for each of us, that over the course of this next month, that, whatever needs to fall away so that we can embody that, and be fully embodied in the world. So we're creating this new world around us by the vibration that we carry, just really energizing that.
That's abundant and pleasurable. Yay.
Yay.
So it occurs to me that it might be really good for everyone to this month, and maybe beyond this month, it's like a good practice to cultivate during this sacral chakra, is to do a gratitude ceremony every day. And you can do it. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You could do it more elaborately at times if you want, or if you have the time, or you want to create an abundance altar, that kind of thing. But just to know that gratitude really raises our vibration and increases our self-worth. And in this quote, in the image here, it says that when gratitude becomes an essential foundation in our lives, miracles start to appear everywhere. And I will say that that is so true. So I really feel it's ideal to practice gratitude daily. And if you have somebody, if you live with somebody, you can practice with them. If you're by yourself, you can practice. When I go out for my morning walks, I'm always talking about what I'm grateful for out loud to myself. Because I really am energizing gratitude to raise my own personal vibration. So a practice that can be really good is to write a gratitude list. And you can take several days to write this. Peter and I created a gratitude list for our relationship when we first got together 11 years ago. And we took several days to create it. And we had like 100 things on it. And we would read it to each other every single day. We'd take turns, saying things about it. And I'll share a little bit more about how you can do that. But if you read it every day, and even if it's just you, and the thing about writing it down is that if you're having a bad day and it's hard to think of what you're grateful for, you have it written down. All you have to do is say it out loud, and you're energizing it in your world and in your field. And it's such a powerful thing to do. So there was one time when Peter and I were doing it, and he was having, he just felt like hell, or felt like crap. I said, yeah. So at the end of every statement, we said, even when we feel like crap. Right. And we laughed so hard. And by the end of the time that we were reading all those, everything had changed.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
So give advanced gratitude. This is something that comes actually from the field of plenty, and Jamie Sam's sacred path cards. She talks about the field of plenty and how they would give advanced gratitude. Mm-hmm. So if you include in your list maybe things that aren't actually happening in your life yet, but you want to be happening in your life, and write them as if they already are something you're grateful for. They're already there. Don't write them as if they're coming. Write them as if they're already happening. And being sure that you create statements of gratitude in positive ways. So don't say, I'm great. Well, you don't want to say that you're grateful for being free from disease. That's implying disease. Say, I'm grateful for radiant health. Right? So in anything you do, don't say what it is you don't want. Say what it is that you do want. And if you have a beloved other that you can do this with, as I've already mentioned, you want to do that. So I just created some examples here. We'll also probably put this in the home play as well. But you want to state your name. I, Cayelin K. Castell, am deeply and profoundly grateful for, and you can put whatever words you want there, but that's just an example you can use. I am deeply and profoundly grateful for all the abundance I experience, including love, joy, fun, financial ease, with more joyous, fulfilling experiences every day. I am grateful for angelic protection. I am grateful for my endless ability to restore, regenerate, and renew each and every day. I mean, these are all some ideas that will get you started in creating your own abundance list. And literally we had 100 things.
So awesome.
And again, you can see these are stated as if they're already, I am grateful for this as if it's already in my life, even if it's not, but usually it is. So that's how you do a gratitude ceremony. And what a great way to energize your sacral chakra this month. I would say do it at least for this month. And if you can do it for longer, read it every day. And then you get to the place where you can just, as you're going to sleep, maybe think of the things you're grateful for. As you're waking up, think of the things you're grateful for. Really embodying a gratitude expression.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Awesome.
Thanks.
And just to say that we did not include this in the home play, but we would highly recommend that if you're drawn to do it, do that as part of the sacred home play. Just absolutely. I'm so inspired. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna, when we recreate the home play list for this one, I'm gonna put it in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So other ideas would be to write a love letter to your body. So write a praise poem or a love letter to your body describing in detail all the things you love about your body and why you are grateful for your body. And you might wish to include in this letter a loving apology for all the ways you've punished your body, judged it as unworthy or less than. And it may, if you're really courageous, you may stand naked in front of a full-length mirror and read the letter aloud to yourself. And I've done this. It's powerful, powerful practice.
Yes, I love how the baby is pointing to itself.
Yeah. So
you're so amazing.
Right? So in addition to the gratitude practice and that practice, also just to really bring your awareness to the places where you may hold scarcity consciousness, find your scarcity hotspots, maybe share them in your journal, maybe spend 20 minutes or more writing about the places in your life where you feel you do not have enough. And actually, I would say too, once just dedicate this practice of bringing your awareness to that so that then it can shift. And you may even want to do some kind of an exercise that's like taking those areas where you don't have enough and beginning to script or say that you are grateful for the places where, as if it's so, that's already healed. So this can also support you with the gratitude practice.
Yes.
And then the creativity reboot. Brainstorm 5 creative projects you've been saying you'll do and you haven't. As we actually tie up a lot of our energy by having all these potential creative things. Just choose one that most inspires you to engage this month and set aside time to do it. That will free up energy for you and it'll help you also cultivate self-value and worth. And then ask if you really want to do the other projects. And if not, let them go. For those that you do, prioritize and set a realistic timeline to complete them. Maybe it's 5 years, but what happens when you do this is that, it takes up a lot of clutter in our minds to have all these things we want to do and think we're supposed to do, but we haven't. So this is a way to clear up some energy and space.
Yes. And I think we're at the end. Yep, we are.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. We hope you have a great month.
Yes.
Working with the sacral chakra. And
we predict that you will.
We do.
We're grateful that you're going to have an amazing month.
We are. We are so grateful. We're deeply and profoundly grateful.
Awesome. So have a beautiful month, and we will see you at the root chakra.